I found him very amusing. His laughter was contagious. "Are you from Arizona, Don Juan?" I asked, in an effort to keep the conversation centered around his being my informant. He looked at me and nodded affirmatively. His eyes seemed to be tired. I could see the white underneath his pupils. "Were you born in this locality?" He nodded his head again, without answering me. It seemed to be an affirmative gesture, but it also seemed to be the nervous headshake of a person who's thinking. "And where are you from, yourself?" he asked. "I come from South America," I said. "That's a big place. Do you come from all of it?" His eyes were piercing again as he looked at me. I began to explain the circumstances of my birth, but he interrupted me. "We're alike in this respect," he said. "I live here now, but I'm really a Yaqui from Sonora." "Is that so? I myself come from—" He didn't let me finish. I know, he said. "You are who you are, from wherever you are, as I am a Yaqui from Sonora." His eyes were very shiny, and his laughter was strangely unsettling. He made me feel as if he'd caught me in a lie. I experienced a peculiar sensation of guilt. I had the feeling he knew something I didn't know, or didn't want to tell. My strange embarrassment grew. He must have noticed it, for he stood up and asked me if I wanted to go eat in a restaurant in town. Walking back to his home and then driving into town made me feel better, but I wasn't quite relaxed. I somehow felt threatened, although I couldn't pinpoint the reason. I wanted to buy him some beer in the restaurant. He said that he never drank, not even beer. I laughed to myself. I didn't believe him. The friend who had put us in contact had told me that the old man was plastered out of his mind most of the time. I really didn't mind if he was lying to me about not drinking. I liked him. There was something very soothing about his person. I must have had a look of doubt on my face, for he then went on to explain that he used to drink in his youth, but that one day he simply dropped it. "People hardly ever realize that we can cut anything from our lives, anytime, just like that." He snapped his fingers. "Do you think that one can stop smoking or drinking that easily?" I asked. "Sure," he said with great conviction. "Smoking and drinking are nothing. Nothing at all, if we want to drop them." At that very moment, the water that was boiling in the coffee percolator made a loud perking sound. "Hear that?" Don Juan exclaimed with a shine in his eyes. "The boiling water agrees with me." Then he added after a pause, "A man can get agreements from everything around him." At that crucial instant, the coffee percolator made a truly obscene gurgling sound. He looked at the percolator and softly said, "Thank you," nodded his head, and then broke into a roaring laughter. I was taken aback. His laughter was a bit too loud, but I was genuinely amused by it all. My first real session with my informant ended then. He said goodbye at the door of the restaurant. I told him I had to visit some friends and that I would like to see him again at the end of the following week. "When will you be home?" I asked. He scrutinized me. "Whenever you come," he replied. "I don't know exactly when I can come." "Just come then, and don't worry." "What if you're not in?" "I'll be there," he said, smiling, and walked away. I ran after him and asked him if he would mind my bringing a camera with me to take pictures of him in his house. "That's out of the question," he said, with a frown. "How about a tape recorder? Would you mind that?" "I'm afraid there's no possibility of that either." I became annoyed and began to fret. I said I saw no logical reason for his refusal. Don Juan shook his head negatively. "Forget it," he said forcefully, "and if you still want to see me, don't ever mention it again." I staged a weak final complaint. I said that pictures and recordings were indispensable to my work. He said that there was only one thing which was indispensable for anything we did. He called it the spirit. One can't do without the spirit, he said, and you don't have it. Worry about that, and not about pictures. What do you... He interrupted me with a movement of his hand and walked backwards a few steps. Be sure to come back, he said softly, and waved goodbye.